Hello again from Green Island Gardens. Beautiful sunny autumn day, perfect time to share with you my favourite top 10 trees. You will notice from this video that I'm not going to include any acers. It would be easy for me to select my favourite 10 trees and most of them would probably be acers, so I'm going to deal with those in a separate video. So this video is going to be the 10 top trees other than acers that I would recommend for your garden. This is Nyssa sinensis, one of my favourite trees. You'll see from the size of it, it's not a huge tree. This one has actually been planted here for over 25 years now. It has lovely, shiny, it's a bit windy today. It has lovely, shiny, glossy, hanging, large leaves, which colour beautifully in the autumn. Quite early colouring, starting with oranges and yellows and then colouring right to bright red before they fall. Another name for it is a black gum. It has insignificant flowers in the spring and then occasionally produces these black berries, which I think you can probably just about see here. The tupelo is its common name, and it does tend to have a slightly suckering habit, as you can see around the bottom here, particularly if it's grown in an area that's moist enough for it. This isn't a problem for me. You can just cut those off, but we tend to use the suckers to propagate new plants. This is another lovely tree, Stuartia sinensis, the Chinese Stuartia. Doesn't form too big a tree, a lovely open elegant habit. It prefers a little bit of shade because the leaves can tend to scorch slightly in full sun if it doesn't have enough moisture. It belongs to the camellia family and it bears masses and masses of white single cup-shaped flowers with prominent yellow stamens in the summer, and these are followed by these attractive looking seed heads afterwards. But the real beauty of it is the colour of the leaves in the autumn. Colouring beautiful, again, oranges and reds before the leaves fall. In the winter, on mature specimens, once all the leaves have gone, it reveals the bark, which again is actually an attraction in itself. It tends to peel and become mottled colours, so it provides a really attractive specimen during the winter months as well. It does prefer a slightly acidic soil. So not one to try if you're on chalk, but if you have got the right spot for it, it's a beautiful tree. Here we have another tree that is not really that large a tree and could almost be classed as a large shrub. It's Cotinus obavatus. You'll remember Cotinus being the smoke bush, and it is related to most of those smoke bushes you see in everybody's gardens, but this one is Cotinus obavatus. It's the American version of Cotinus, and it does tend to form a more tree-like form and slightly larger than the hybrid cultivars we commonly grow in our gardens. It has lovely scented foliage. When you break a leaf and smell it, it's very hard to describe the smell, but the closest I've ever got is parsnips, which sounds a little curious. It flowers insignificantly, as most smoke bushes do, in late spring to summer, and then has the most beautiful fluffy seed heads, pink seed heads that look like candy floss, covering the bush for about 6 to 8 weeks during the summer months. Makes it look a real picture, and then in the autumn it has the most beautiful colours through yellow, reds, deep burgundy, a real spectacular focal point here. Behind me we have another one of my favourite trees. This is Paulownia tomentosa, otherwise known as the foxglove tree. It has the most enormous, huge, heart-shaped, downy green leaves. But the real spectacle is the foxglove-like heads of flowers that appear on the bare branches, usually about the last day of April or the first day in May in the spring. You can see it's absolutely covered in flower buds for next year. The sort of tan-coloured little round bauble things. It's going to be a real spectacle next year. This year it didn't flower so well because we had a dry summer previously, but you can still see a few of the brown seed heads remaining from last year's flowers. It is a lovely tree. It needs a big space to be able to show itself off to its best, but there is another way of growing it, which I shall show you in a moment. This is my other Paulownia. Now this one I treat completely differently, and I coppice it right down to the ground every year. And all this growth you can see here is literally from this year. And it makes the leaves grow absolutely enormous. My children used to think they were the size of umbrellas, and they would love it when I said they could pick them when they were small. But you can see right in here in the bottom where we cut it right back every year, literally down to the ground here to about 6 inches. And as I say, this is all this year's growth. Now Paulownias will self-seed themselves, so if you get a few seedlings, why not try this? It's a really tropical looking effect. Excellent foliage plant. So right next to this Paulownia we have another superb tree. This is Davidia involucrata, otherwise known as the handkerchief tree. It has pretty leaves hanging, and then in the spring beautiful black tiny flowers surrounded by 2 white bracts, one shorter, one longer, and they hang looking like doves or like handkerchiefs on the tree when it's covered in April time. The leaves persist, and then they do usually colour a nice yellow, sometimes tinged orange colour in the autumn. But look at these seed heads, it's absolutely covered in them this year. And once they've dropped to the ground, they resemble walnuts. It is a tree that requires patience. A bit like the Paulownia, it can take up to 10 years to flower from when you first plant it. So if you want one in your garden, best to get it in straight away. This is another lovely ornamental tree, an excellent specimen. It's called Liriodendron tulipifera. The name tulipifera because the flowers resemble tulips. Well, some people say they do. They're little orange cup-shaped, yellowy orange cup-shaped flowers with an orange band around the top, and they appear on specimens that are at least 10 years old, so you need a bit of patience with this tree as well. It makes quite a wide spreading tree and has beautifully shaped, very distinctive shaped leaves. I think these leaves look more like tulips to me, but they colour to a lovely buttery yellow colour, as you can see in the autumn. And once the tree has completely coloured, it looks an absolute picture. But again, a really nice specimen, flowering tree, worth growing in your garden. This is another one of my favourite trees, Parotia persica, or the Persian ironwood. And I was delighted when we moved to Green Island and discovered that somebody had planted one in the garden for us. But sadly, as you can see, it's planted far too close to the cedar. And I did think about moving it 25 years ago, but on balance decided it was best to just leave it here and enjoy it and plant another one somewhere else in the garden that would have space to reach its true potential. But funnily enough, this one actually colours the best of all the Parotias I have. You can see already, although it's a very late season this year and we're already at the end of October, the leaves are starting to colour up their beautiful orange and yellow colours. It will go bright red before they fall, but it's always an interesting array of colours at any one time. But I will take you now and show you the other Parotia that we planted here ourselves, and you can see how much better it's grown. So you can see when a Parotia is given space, it produces the most beautiful shaped tree. It's multi-branching, it's spreading, and it needs a lot of space to show itself off properly. And it deserves to be a major focal point like it is planted here. Parotias belong to the same family as Hamamelis. You can tell by the leaves they're very similar. And in February-March time, the flowers are very reminiscent of small Hamamelis flowers, spidery red flowers on the bare branches, which look really pretty. The new leaves, as they emerge, have red tinges to them, and right through the growing season, the leaves at the end of the branches will take on those colours as well. And then in the autumn, they start to colour up beautifully before finally falling. The other lovely thing about this tree is that even in the middle of winter, when it's lost all its leaves and it's just got its bare branches, the trunk and the stems take on lovely mottled colours. so it makes it an attractive feature even in the winter. Sadly, it is too big a specimen for the average size garden, but nurserymen have now bred smaller cultivars and much more upright growing ones, and the one I would recommend most for a smaller garden is Parotia persica Vanessa. An excellent choice, tends to colour up really well, but as I say, much smaller tree and tends to colour slightly earlier than straight Parotia persica for us as well. But definitely worth looking into if you want a nice specimen tree. Styrax japonicus, the Japanese snowbell tree. Beautiful tree. This is a lovely small growing tree, and it has beautiful horizontal branches which are the perfect foil for showing off the clusters of pendulum flowers that hang absolutely covering the branches in about June time. They're white, look like little snowdrops upside down with prominent orange stamens, and they have a beautiful sweet fragrance. The foliage turns a pretty yellow colour in the autumn. It will grow in sun or part shade, and it really ought to be grown much more often in our gardens. Really beautiful tree. This is Liquidambar styraciflua, a really excellent tree. It's the sweet gum is its common name. It makes a tall, narrow columnar tree, which makes it suitable for smaller gardens as well. The leaves have a similar shape to an acer in these lobed leaves, and a lot of people are often fooled into thinking that it does belong to the acer family, but actually it doesn't. The new growth, when it comes in, has a lovely red colour. You can see at the top and the end of the branches, the leaves are colouring. And in terms of autumn colour, longevity, I would say this is the best value tree because the leaves start colouring from August onwards, and strangely from the top of the tree downwards, and it will colour right through September, October and November, and probably not lose its final leaves into December. So a lot of the trees we plant for autumn colour have lost their leaves by the end of October or November in a normal year, whereas these will still be here for another month. So it's an excellent tree for autumn colour as well, but it makes a really beautiful focal point, I think, and if you've got space to grow it as a specimen, an excellent choice. So that's my favourite 10 trees that I would recommend. You will notice that they all are deciduous, which is probably not an accident, because one of the beauties, I think, in a garden is the changing of the seasons. There are some good evergreen trees, but that's probably best to save as a subject for a separate video another day. But for today, thank you very much for watching once again. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel.